But in their 25 years as a couple, Marin and Hackford have never again worked together until now. The new film Love Ranch, directed by Hackford, stars his wife, Helen Marin, as a madam of a 1970s Nevada brothel.
Selling love will make you rich. That's what my mother taught me.
You were saying as you watched the trailer, what?
Well, I was saying that it is extraordinary that this was such a dramatic story that actually happened. Although, as we say, it's inspired by, our film is not a documentary about the story, but this story actually did happen. You know, Sally Conforti did have an affair with a much younger boxer who was training in the brothel, and the boxer was murdered, killed. I mean, it's an amazing dramatic story, and it has somehow flown under the radar. Nobody seems to be hugely aware of this sort of extraordinary story.
So why did it take you guys this long to make a film again?
Together?
Yes.
Well, we've been working, of course, in the interim,
I know, right.
You know, in different places at different times, but certainly never together.
Now, have you been in search of a story?
Yes, I've actually tried to, well, listen, when you are a filmmaker, you get passionate about something. She can make 4 films a year. I make a film every 2 years, right, if I'm lucky. And, you know, some of the films that I've become passionate about don't have roles for Helen. Ray didn't have a role for Helen.
Right. I could have played his mother, darling. I mean, you didn't ask me. I don't understand why.
In Devil's Advocate, there wasn't anything. And quite frankly, there's been opportunities where I've said to her, baby, I'd love for you to do this role. And she, you know, an actor is only turned on by how they think they can be in a film if they like the role. And she very politely went, no, thank you.
Oh, you must be joking.
Plus, she has tons of opportunities.
She's working like crazy. But the fact is, I went out actively looking for something. And a friend of mine, Mark Jacobson, who writes for New York Magazine, had rediscovered this story. When I used to be a journalist, as you know, for a long time ago, I researched this story back in '76. Fascinating, because it was in California and everybody knew about the Mustang Ranch.
But the cover of Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah, no, it was a big story at the time, but it's 30 years ago. Mark Jacobson rediscovered the story, and he and a boxing promoter named Lou DiBella, who, you know, Lou was a big boxing person in the world and knew Bonavena, knew about Bonavena, and understood
Oscar Bonavena is the fighter who had the love affair, who was killed.
Exactly. I mean, he was a big guy in the 70s. He was the champion of South America. He was from Argentina. He came here in the decade of the greatest heavyweights. You know, Frazier, Ali, Foreman, all those people, and he fought them. Yeah. You know, he knocked Frazier down twice in the second round, almost knocked him out, which nobody done. Ali, he took to the limit. So he was a tough guy. And the idea of this story, but most importantly to me, I remembered, and I said, this is a vehicle for Helen. Right. Because the center of this story is the madam. And of course, you know, brothels cannot be run by anyone but a woman. I mean, it's a society of women. They service men, right? And that process, I thought, that's interesting. And this triangle, which, you know, results in huge passion. I mean, really, the premise of the film, can you find love in a cynical place that sells sex?
And she did.
Yeah.
Yes, and indeed, love can be found. The wonderful madam who guided us and helped me enormously, who runs a present-day Mustang Ranch, a woman called Susan Austin, did just that. She found love within the walls of a brothel. She was a working girl. So
I mean, with a customer?
Yes, yes. It's an amazing sort of love story. Another film to be made sometime. But,
okay, so when Taylor comes to you and says, darling,
I'm going to put
nice approach, Charlie. Nice approach.
I have a story.
Yes.
I have a part. Did you say what?
I said that sounds great.
Yes.
I have
Did
to
you
say,
really?
I did, absolutely, because you know it was up my alley. You know.
Why was it up your alley?
Because I like a little bit of a walk on the wild side, as you know, as people have seen from the films that I've done in the past.
I like a little bit of a walk on the wild side.
I mean, I'm a good girl, but I do like a sort of. I like to, you know, go over there sometimes, and also, you know, I had just done The Queen, and it was a fabulous.
Right, from one queen to a madam.
From one queen to another kind of a queen.
Exactly.
But you know, it was obviously a very different kind of a role, different milieu, different look.
Right.
And so I jumped at it, and you know, when the script arrived, I was very excited.
So what's the relationship first? That she has two relationships. One
is with Joe Pesci, her husband.
Right.
Now this is a very interesting pairing. You know, if you mention to the world you're going to pair Helen Mirren and Joe Pesci, usually the eyebrows rise of anybody who hears that story. But in reality, they are two consummate actors.
Right.
And Joe Conforte, who was the antecedent to this character, is a small peripatetic Italian from the Northeast who went to northern Nevada, took on the trappings of a cowboy, and literally did what, you know, you talk about people pursuing the American dream, the impossible American dream. Well, we come from a country of Puritans. The Puritan ethic, the Puritan mores of this country, we are very uptight about sex. And this is a man who can you know, was able to defeat 200 years of that Puritan uptight quotient and get prostitution legalized for the first time. He was an interesting guy, and I thought that Joe Pesci had that kind of energy. He's not playing the guy from, you know, from Goodfellas or from Casino. He's not a cold-blooded killer. He's a huckster who has a dream and has actualized that dream. And he's thinking he's just on top of the world. Yeah. But he's forgotten some of the things that were most important to him. And that partnership between these two, husband and wife, partners in business, is the core of the story. And then we bring in a catalyst that changes it.
Okay, but Oscar was killed by what?
Well, Oscar was shot exactly, not exactly like he is in the film. He was shot at the gate of the Mustang Ranch. There's a lot of things shrouded in mystery about that night. Of course, you know, Joe Conforte controlled that county. Right. And you know, this was written about over and over. It was controlled the county, and somehow, you know, even though it was pretty hard to imagine, the person who supposedly took the rap, it was done in self-defense, supposedly, and the guy went to jail for under 6 months. And Joe was absolved. Everything was taken care of, because in that world, Joe Conforte ran his own show. He was the biggest. He was taxed more than anybody else in the county. He gave more contributions to every politician, and he kind of ran his own thing. Interestingly enough, someone like this who has it made, he's gotten it, you know, legalized, he's making money. All he had to do was pay his taxes. But underneath it all, he'd operated so many years as illegally. The IRS finally got him, and he's actually living today, like we say in the film, in Brazil.
Wow. In order to escape the IRS?
Yeah, he's a tax fugitive.
And Sally Conforti did pass away eventually. She's not with us anymore.
And was she distraught over Oscar's death?
Oh yeah, very. It was a tragic situation. The film, however, and I want to say this, one of the things that we did is to say, all right, here's this story. Yes, the facts, Charlie, are true. But let's not be totally bound. Let's give it an opportunity to, because I think it's a great American morality tale. You can get the American dream. The question is, can you deal with it?
This is also about society's taboos, which is simply prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And you said you found something interesting and appealing about that environment of a brothel.
I did. You know, Taylor really wanted me to go and spend time in the Mustang Ranch. He'd already gone to do his research and had met Susan Austin and been very welcomed by Susan and her husband Lance, who own and run the Mustang Ranch, the new Mustang Ranch.
And does it make a lot of money today?
Oh yeah, they own two. They own two. They own the Wild Horse. She was a girl at the Mustang Ranch. She worked for Joe Conforte. You know, and they have now 2 brothels because they bought the old Mustang and moved it onto the property. Yeah, but of course they're no longer a monopoly. There's a lot of brothels, legal brothels in Nevada, and you know, they're doing land office business, of course.
Right.
As you would expect.
So what did you find appealing about a brothel? What was it?
Well, you know, Taylor